Pakistan consultant. My name is Tom Stelma, and I get to work with some uh, colleagues across our global competency centers to deliver exceptional outcomes for our customers, particularly in retail, as it relates to their digital data and analytics uh, transformation strategies. We're very pleased that you're able to set aside the time for such an exceptional executive advisory session. And I am, as I said, very, very fortunate to introduce you to Amin and Bill Hayden. So, gentlemen, thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Thomas. It's our privilege and honor that we have Bill Hayden today to go through the product, the capabilities of Tricentis from a person who closely work with these integrations and all those things. And Thomas, thank you very much again for initiating this session. And let's start. And I would go with my first slide. And today, as part of our agenda, I just want to give you a quick glimpse of that. Today, as part of our agenda, we will be talking about the McKinsey journey and McKinsey Center of Excellence and our industry capabilities initially. Then we'll be going to the product capabilities of Tricentis, which Bill will be going through. And we get to hear many things from him. We used to have regular meetings every week with him, and now it's a different platform. But yeah, today it's going to be an enlightening session for the products related to Tricentis. And with that, let's move on to the first slide. Okay, so in this session, in this slide, we are going to talk about McKinsey's journey from SAP consulting company and how we adopted the changes of the era and time that is happening in the industry, and how we made ourselves with the automation as well. Okay, so McKinsey is a retail and fashion focused niche consulting corporation with a global presence, and we have also having differentiated IP products and the expert workforce within our team. And we have the mantra of this responsible, reliable, and resources is our primary mantra that we have from McKinsey, and we started in 2008, and we founded as SAP Retail Consulting, and from there every year we made a significant achievements, and we achieved a lot of milestone. But we try to capture some of the key highlights here. If you see that in 2010 we created a partnership with a large IT firm. Then in 2014 we started engagement with the AFS retail program at $10 billion. And the 2017 and 18 were very significant because and in 2017, that's where we made a SAP partnership, and we become the SAP Silver partner. And in 2018, we also started our automation COE, and that is when we launched and we made a partnership with the UiPath, who is a leading RPA and what do you call intelligent automation provider. And 2020 is when we made our partnership with Tricentis and other products as well. And that is the year we also got registered our first project with the state government on RPA, and we actually implemented that successfully. In 2021 we added AMS projects and new logos, and in 2022 this year we made a significant record thing is that we made a partnership with Hyperscience, who is a leading OCR provider, technology provider, and as well as we also automated the IMDX process, and now we have the IMDX bot available. So this is all about our McKinsey journey, how we transform from an SAP consultant to an automation enabled consultant now. Moving on to the next slide, as we mentioned, in 2018, we started our COE, and and we also captured our operating model with that. And with that, we start our with our organization. We have a defined organization structure in with COE, and our roles and responsibilities are defined with all the aspects of the testing automation, from a solution architect, test solution architect, from a developer, from a tester, from a test management. So all the roles and responsibilities has been defined, and we have workforce ready to take any challenge from there. And the second comes the governance. We want to make sure that we don't miss out any governance part, or we miss out any compliance part. And for that, we make sure that we have our governance and policies and standards that are in place, and we make sure that every regular interval we used to have our internal audits to make sure that whatever we've been doing has been done correctly or not. Apart from our customers audits, the which we call external audits, we also have our internal audits and internal auditing team for governance who take care of all these things. And it comes to technology, yes, we have the capability of technology, and we also have established partners, a partnership. Example, we have a very strong partnership with Tricentis, who can help us in terms of automation, test automation, and AI driven automation wherever they need, right? We have established such partnership where they can come and help us. And also we have capable technical capable team within us who can be a workforce and can take any challenges. So the next comes the process experience. We have process from identifying the automation opportunities, as from identifying opportunity automation, and until the implementation, the end-to-end process that we have experience. So we have experience with creating proof of concept as well. Before we go and do automation, we can do a feasibility check whether that's whatever the automation that we are thinking, whether it's can be happen or not. So that part is being covered. We'll move to the people and culture. We take care of the training and qualification whenever there is a process change, because of the automation. So we make sure that we train the business users and the stakeholders in such a way that they can have their business with without any interruption. And also we make sure that we have the documents and user manuals in place if they require, so they can go through anytime, they can refer it. So in case if they want to understand how the new process works, they can go with that. That comes under organizational change management. And that's all about this slide. And the next slide, where we have the industry capabilities. So people may be amazed at wondering why we are talking about the industry capabilities under a test automation or a QA engineering webinar. So industry capabilities or business knowledge and functional knowledge and all these are very important to come up with a good testing structure or test design, we can call. So with the experience in the industry, so a person or a concern or firm can come up with good test cases, and also business risk test cases or experience based cases that can identify more defects, which can assure the quality of your software. So that is where it's very important to have the function knowledge. And here we have around 12 plus years of experience in the industry of retail, fashion, and CPG. With the best practices and experiences, we can make our testing more intellectual rather than just being a process. And so we have made our partnership established with a leading fashion handbag retailer and a fashion apparel retailer. We have chocolate and candies retailer. We have an eyewear manufacturer and retailer. We have also made a partnership with grocery chain and electronics retailer. So at this point, we also thank all our customers who believed in us, and we have business with them, and that is where it helps us to grow bigger and bigger. So with that, I would like to uh, move to the next slide, where I would request Bill to take over from here.
Thank you so much, Amin, and thank you, Thomas, for the great introduction, and greetings everyone who is watching with us today. They said, my name is Bill Hayden. I'm a senior solution architect with Tricentis, and I've been in the testing and automation space since the late 90s in general, and in the SAP space in particular since the early 2000s. So when I talk about these topics, I tend to do so with a sense of historical perspective and with a sense of passion, because I have an appreciation for where we've come from as an industry, why test automation has not really lived up to its potential until now, particularly in the SAP space, and why now more than ever, it's utterly imperative that it do so. And I'm going to start by talking about why SAP chose Tricentis about a year and a half ago to be their official testing solution. And it all comes down to the pace of change we're all dealing with in our environments today. I want you to think for a second about the changes that are coming through your environments that you're responsible for, and realize that today is as slow as it will ever be again. We have to find a way to keep up with this pace of change. And study after study shows that the one largest barrier to agility, to keeping up with that speed, is still testing. Now, why is that? It's because we have fallen victim to a traditional route of test automation that was heavily dependent on scripted solutions. And when our company, Tricentis, was founded by our founder, Wolfgang Plotz, he realized this. And he set about to find a way to completely redefine how we approach testing by injecting efficiencies into every stage of the testing process, whether it be automation, whether it be management, whether it be determining what we test up front in an intelligent manner so we can actually do less testing more intelligently. And when we do decide that things need to be automated, we do so in the most easy to create, maintainable way possible. And oh, by the way, the effort we invest in that, let's go ahead and leverage that, not just for functional, but for performance testing as well. Now, with SAP testing, we have an additional level of consideration in that we need to get the business more involved in the testing effort. We need to lower that barrier to technical participation as well. And I think you'll find as we go through this presentation, Tricentis exists to enable all of that. We are a global leader according to Gartner, Forrester, and several other studies. We are a completely enterprise-grade platform. We partner with world-class organizations like Mac&Sol to make this a reality for our customers. And as Amin alluded to, we are injecting AI and machine learning into various phases of the testing problem as well. And for all these reasons, this is why SAP chose us to be their official testing solution. Next slide, please. Now, I could go on and on about our history, about our number of customers, where we stand in terms of Gartner or Forrester, but I want to direct your attention to the upper left-hand corner and those results. 90% scenario automation coverage. And I'm going to go into more depth on this in a later slide, but this is very significant. Now, the key here isn't that our customers are achieving this. The key is that they're achieving it with positive return on investment. And that is the real key. I've overseen many automation projects with other enterprise tools, with Tricentis tools, with open source tools, and 90% scenario automation coverage is achievable if you throw a small army at it. But Tricentis is the only solution that allows you to do so with positive ROI. And again, I'm going to go into detail on this in a later slide. And that results in a greater increase in speed because we have taken so much burden off the manual testing team. Because we're able to create and maintain this automation and keep up with that pace of change, we are able to enable much faster deployments. One classic example, a good friend of mine worked at an organization in Boston where they were pretty much on track to do 4 major releases a year for their SAP environment. And they needed to pick up that pace of change where they were doing 4 a month. And at first, my friend said everyone thought it impossible until they invested in the Tricentis methodologies and technologies And not only were able to keep up, my friend was so enamored with this, he actually came to work for Tricentis, and I'm pleased to call him a teammate today. Now, the last piece I want to talk about is risk coverage. And we're going to go more into depth on this in a later slide as well. Risk is really our currency. Remember when I said earlier that we could actually do less testing more intelligently? This is the first place where we're going to inject machine learning and AI into the process of actually choosing what to test in the first place. So again, we're going to go more into depth on each of these in later slides. Next slide, please. Now, a quick overview of our platform, and I'm going to talk about this from two different angles. First, let's talk about the journey that a testing project takes throughout the Tricentis lifecycle. We're going to start in the lower right-hand corner with our live compare technology. In a nutshell, this is where we're actually going to choose what to test more intelligently. It sits within your production environment and constantly monitors the activities in your production SAP system. And from that, it uses its machine learning algorithms to determine what is used most often, what is most business critical, and begins to understand the patterns of who's using what and when. And then when a change is introduced, whether it's into dev or QA, it's also monitoring those environments. It can immediately analyze what the impacted objects are. With that capability, it weighs that against what it's already been learning and determines several things. One, what transactions are needed to test those impacted objects? But it does so in a very optimized fashion. For instance, if there's an include table that has changed, and it knows that if it tests it in VAO1, it takes 5 steps to get to that include table. But it tests in VAO2, it only takes 2 steps. And oh, by the way, VAO2 in this example is used more often and includes 3 other impacted objects. So therefore, it's going to prioritize based on risk VAO2 higher on the testing tree. So not only is it determining the minimal number of tests you need to run, it's determining the tests that have the least number of steps you need to run. And this analysis is fairly instantaneous. In fact, it'll show you the time savings over running a full regression right next to the analysis. And this can be upwards of 85, 90% reduction in effort. So you can literally do less testing more intelligently. But that's not where it ends. Notice as the arrow comes around to Tosca, which is our automation platform, we see the word hits and gaps. It then takes that optimized list of tests and determines what I've already automated that needs to be run to cover that change. And it will build an execution list for you, run it, and show you the results automatically. But even more importantly, it's going to show you where you have gaps in your automated testing, where we still need to build various automated tests in order to cover everything impacted by that change. And that allows you to add it to your sprint so that you in one sprint can get all the way through with full coverage. Now, we don't stop just there. With our recent acquisition of Neotis about a year ago now, in the Neoload Enterprise Performance Testing Platform, we have developed a very tight integration between our functional automation platform, Tosca, and our performance testing platform, Neoload. With one click, I can take those Tosca tests and convert them to Neoload user flows without having to recode anything. Oh, did I say code? By the way, both Tosca and Neoload are codeless solutions. They're very visual, model-based solutions. A little bit more on that in a moment, but that is how we're keeping up with that pace of change. And then notice sitting in the middle of all this is our award-winning Agile Test Management platform, Q-Test. Now, I say Agile Test Management a little loosely because really it can encompass any software development lifecycle. It's the one platform that I've ever worked with that could handle a waterfall project, an Agile project, a scaled Agile framework project, a very advanced DevOps project, a Scrum project, a Kanban project, all within the same platform. You don't need to change technologies. And oh, by the way, it gives you a unified visibility across all of those projects. So you can manage your effort across all your different systems with one unified approach. Now, a little bit more on our platform. Next slide, please. Notice here, we break it down into a few more areas. And I really just want to regroup what we saw in that last slide into different areas of efficiency, because that's the theme I really want to come across here. Notice, starting on the left, I mentioned Q-test, good management practice that's open and scalable. And oh, by the way, integrates with every tool on the planet. We can run anyone's automation. We can run anyone's CI/CD pipeline, is essential to getting efficiency out of your overall testing process. In the optimization category, we've already hit on Live Compare, how we can do less testing more intelligently. But within Tosca, we have additional capabilities, such as our test case design algorithms. Whereas if you have a situation where you need to run various options for data combinations through your tool, this will help you optimize those so you can do, again, the least number of data combinations for maximum risk coverage. You can also virtualize calls out to third-party systems if they're not available right now. And then, of course, on the automation front, I hit on Tosca already. Notice we emphasize no code, but end-to-end. One of the beautiful things about Tosca is that it works exactly the same way on over 170 different interfaces. So if you have a test that starts in SAP and maybe needs to go to a mainframe or a web interface, or even another packaged application like a Salesforce, you can do it all in Tosca with the exact same approach. And oh, by the way, if it's an interface that doesn't fall in one of those 170, that's where our second foray into artificial intelligence comes in. We have developed a new AI-driven engine for driving UI level testing that is completely technology independent. It's so powerful, I've been able to automate even through Citrix interfaces. And we've also introduced through this engine a means of self-healing. So another way we can keep up with the maintenance of those tests. It can detect changes and automatically adapt the test to those changes. We've just released an upgraded version of this in version 15. We'll have a very large announcement coming out around that very soon, but look for more on our self-healing capabilities for our functional automation. And the last piece I really want to point out here that we really haven't touched on yet, which is so integral to SAP testing, is testing at the data layer as well. If you think about it, data is the most complex, we'll call it organism, moving through your IT infrastructure because it's always changing and it's always moving through systems that are always changing. So how are we ensuring that the data moving from point A, maybe it's a point of sale system, all the way to point B, maybe it's something like Snowflake for running analytics in order to make future sales and marketing decisions, is transforming correctly and arriving intact. And we're also talking about very large volumes of data. You know, people who are tasked to do this, let's call them data analysts, can spend over a fourth of their time in some cases just making sure that that data is arriving intact because they don't trust the system. They don't trust the process. With our Tricentis data integrity, which is part of Tosca, by the way, we can organize tests and run them at the rate of 200 million in just 20 minutes. We have a customer doing that right now in order to ensure that that data arrives intact and on time. This literally solves multi-million-dollar problems for organizations. But I could talk on and on about data integrity, but again, I just wanted you to see all the different areas where we're injecting efficiency into the overall testing process. Next slide, please. Now, I want to go back and drill down on those numbers that we saw a few slides ago and talk about it from a historic perspective, particularly this number in the middle, this 90% test automation rate. And I've kind of already given away how we've done it, but let's look at it from the point of view of someone who started his automation career in the build up to Y2K. Back then, we had a very popular suite of automated test tools known as the Mercury Interactive Suite. It was a tool called WinRunner, and it was a script-based solution. We actually had to learn a variant of the C language called TSL in order to use it. And we would tell people that 75% automation rates were about what you should shoot for because with the tools of the day, they simply couldn't do everything. But we were literally building volumes and volumes and volumes of code scripts in order to test other code. So you can see as the test coverage expanded, it became harder and harder to keep up with the maintenance. So and then in 2004, a gentleman named Charlie Lee, I had the good pleasure of going to Georgia Tech with him. He's now a very large VP over at CAP. He was the HP ALM product manager at the time, and he wrote a book on ROI with test automation. Why wasn't test automation achieving its promise. And what he found was that break-even point for positive return on investment, if you're using a scripted solution, at that point, it was Quick Test Professional because things had evolved. That break-even point was 40%. Anything above 40%, he said, you're probably spending more time fixing than you are running, or more money than you're saving by finding defects. And that was the industry standard. That was 2004. So think about everything that's happened since then. We've had the Agile revolution, the DevOps revolution, the head-on charge to the cloud. The pace of change has only gotten faster and faster and faster. And what we've seen is those automation rates, again, for maintainability's sake, have dropped to 20%. Well, what's happened to the other 80? Well, they're having to be done manually or not at all. Hence why testing has always been in the way of agility and speed. So how is it that Tricentis Tosca customers are achieving 90% plus automation rates, again, with positive return on investment? It's because we've taken code out of the equation, if you pardon the pun. We've created a completely visual, model-based approach backed up by AI self-healing that allows you to keep up with the pace of change. And before I came to Tricentis, I didn't believe it until I started talking to our customers and really saw the results, that it's achievable and maintainable and so easy to use. So again, it's fast to build. You can see 80% acceleration release cycles, but it's even faster to maintain. And it's that maintenance trap that is really the magic behind Tosca, how we help people avoid that. And that, of course, leads to that higher risk coverage as well. But we also tackle risk from the live compare point of view, which I'll talk about here in a minute as well. Next slide, please. Now, any testing effort needs to be wrapped in an overall view of where things stand, without having the ability through simple dashboards to advertise our metrics, our KPIs, and to be able to share those with anyone who wants to see them, regardless of whether they have a license to. It's hard to communicate where our testing efforts stand. And that's why we have wrapped all our tools within our upcoming Tricentis Analytics platform. Think of this almost as a data lake for quality metrics. We do provide out-of-the-box dashboards for you, but you're able to use your own BI tools as well that you may already have in-house. Maybe it's Power BI, maybe it's something completely different like Tableau. But you'll be able to plug in your own tools in order to gain visibility at a high level and a low level, whether you're doing functional automation, performance testing, or even manual testing through Q-Test. Tricentis Analytics is going to allow you to gain that visibility across the spectrum. Next slide, please. Now, one thing that I'm very proud of is how we were integrating with our partners and now part of the team, Neoload, even before the acquisition. Now, I mentioned a very visual model-based solution, and I also mentioned that with one click, I can take a functional test and convert it to a performance test. And here on the right, you see an example of each. That literally is a Tosca test on the left of that diagram. You can see the logic flow. It's very easy to read, very easy to lay out. Imagine doing a test review meeting where that's what your automated test cases look like. Your business users will be able to tell you immediately whether or not you're on the right track. But historically, using other tools and other approaches, we would have to, in essence, recreate the wheel in order to convert that to a performance test because they simply worked on fundamentally different principles. You know, if I look at some of our competition, the UI level test might be written in VB script, whereas the performance test might be written in C. The UI scripts might have references to objects on the screen, whereas the performance tests are at the protocol level. So we're seeing HTTP responses. Well, take a look at what you see on the right of that diagram. That is a Neoload user flow. Again, very visual, very easy to create, very easy to maintain. In fact, so easy to create and maintain, this no-code approach has allowed people to keep up with performance testing in sprint. For the first time, we don't have to wait until the very end of our project in order to do performance testing. But those lines connecting the two, with our current level of technology, with one click in Tosca, and we have a demo here to show in just a second, I can immediately say, convert this to a Neoload user flow, and it happens automatically. So we have one definition of the test that works for both. We're not having to maintain two different sets of artifacts. Now, I'm happy to announce that later this year, that's going to continue to improve, where it literally will be one artifact that we can use for either performance or load testing. So now if you think about that story that we told, starting with live compare, where we're using AI to determine what to test. So we're doing less testing more intelligently. It immediately looks into the task repository and runs that automation because it can identify what tests are needed. And then with one click, I can choose which transactions need to be performance tested based on a change. I now have true AI-driven, risk-based analysis, functional testing, and performance testing across the board. Next slide, please. And here we're going to see that demonstration. So what you're seeing here is Tosca. This is an execution list in Tosca. Here is where my test case resides. Again, notice how very visual it is. Now, this is not an SAP example. This is a simple web application, but you can see still very visual. We can see through the test exactly the objects that we're going to be interacting with. And when we move that over to an execution list, that is where I'm able to actually convert it into a performance test. And notice there's a lot of just very basic drag and drop functionality within Tosca. So here I've moved my test over, and we're actually going to be running this on AWS. And once I select it and I right click, notice the NeoLoad add-in. Here I can convert to an SAP test. I can convert to a web test. So you can see the SAP capability immediately built in. And as soon as I select that conversion, it's going to run the test for me. And in the background, the NeoLoad user flow is being automatically created. Those of you who've ever seen a Tricentis demo, you know that we love to demo against insurance applications. It's because our founder, Wolfgang, came from the insurance industry. So it's kind of an inside joke with the company that all demos must be done on either SAP or an insurance application. So here we're nearing the end of the transaction, and you'll notice NeoLoad flashing there at the bottom along with Tosca. You can see here, I have an execution record within Tosca. Everything ran correctly. I have green check marks, but more importantly, in NeoLoad, I now have my complete user flow. I didn't have to do anything in NeoLoad to make this happen. I immediately have converted this to a performance test. And here I can see the various actions. Now notice you can still see the technical details. I can still see the URLs I'm hitting, the different components of the different calls, but it's all very visual, all very drag and drop, and I didn't have to code anything to make it happen. Now, let's dive in a little bit more on live compare. This is a literal example of a heat map analyzing the change impact of a change coming, maybe it's a charm, maybe it's a transport, but the impacted objects and the transactions that are being impacted by them. And you can see, in this case, the larger the square, the more impact there is on those transactions. You can also see the ones that aren't necessarily posing any risk. So I mentioned the tool does an immediate analysis of what objects are impacted as well as your savings. Now, some of the other tools that are out there will allow you to get that center bar, the one that says 2270. You'll allow you to see what the impacted objects are, but you have to maintain some very complicated test documentation in order to do that. This does it automatically, simply by observing the environments. So if I have overall 3,000 objects in my SAP instance, I can immediately see that from this change, 2270 were impacted. But again, remember what I said earlier about how we optimize the effort? It's going to go through and figure out the minimum number of tests I need to run with the minimum number of steps in order to completely cover that impact. And then it's going to reach into my test repository and run those tests for me. In this example, that's an 85% reduction over running full regression. When I do my live demos, sometimes it's over 90%. And that is real savings. That's what allowed my friend to keep up with that increasing pace of change in that organization, Boston, that I mentioned earlier. And by the way, if you ever get a chance to meet him, he's one of the most enthusiastic, infectious people when it comes to this technology. So again, let's do less testing more intelligently upfront. Next slide, please. Now, last but not least, I want to touch on how we help people with their ongoing cloud migrations. As we all know, going into COVID, everyone made a mad dash for the cloud, particularly for their backbone systems, such as SAP, in order to save money. And sometimes those cloud migrations stalled out midway because people didn't realize what they were getting themselves into. They were thinking just lift and shift, if you will, rehost, as it were. I'm just going to take my application as it is and jam it up in the cloud, and all of a sudden the costs are going to come down. Well, that didn't work out so well for a lot of folks. So we started looking at the other R's for cloud migrations. Maybe we're refactoring. I oversaw a very large project at a entertainment and amusement park company in Central Florida. You may be familiar with them. Their logo is a mouse, where they were refactoring all of their systems for the cloud, a huge uplifting effort. Sometimes they were completely re-architecting from scratch, or maybe we're going to rebuild or replace the systems, the 5 R's of cloud migration. I know a lot of you listening are very familiar with this, but I wanted to show this slide to show that we support all these efforts regardless of which path is being taken. Obviously, with Tosca and Tosca data integrity, anytime things are moving to the cloud, we want to make sure the functionality is intact, and more importantly, the data is intact. You'll notice on the refactor side, something called Tosca OSV. You see that in rebuild as well. That's our orchestrated service virtualization capability. Remember I said that we could stub out calls to third-party systems? One thing I haven't touched on yet is that Tosca is not only capable of UI level automation, but is a very, very powerful API level automation tool as well. And again, in a very visual, no code way. And those API tests you build, again, with one click, you notice that's a theme throughout our tool set, can be used as virtualized services through Tosca OSV. And we're going to have some major announcements about this later this year. So you don't have to rely on development to create those stubs if you want to do end-to-end testing and a system may or may not be available, or a service may or may not be available. You have control over your testing environment through orchestrated service virtualization. And then just last but not least, you'll notice in the lower right-hand corner, I've talked about Live Compare. Live Compare right now is primarily just for the SAP environment, but we just announced at the end of last year, Live Compare for Salesforce as well. And combined with our Salesforce scanner, for those of you doing Salesforce testing, it's a massive force multiplier for doing testing. We also just announced that we'll be extending Live Compare to several other platforms as well, including ServiceNow and beyond. So I believe that sums up my portion of the presentation. I want to turn it back over to Amin, but I want to thank you all for your attention, and I look forward to the chance to hopefully get to speak with you all in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bill. It was a very good session and slides that you have gone through, providing the insights on each and every product in the testing landscape, and it's very enlightening. With that, we'll move on to the next slide. Thomas, do you have anything to say? Your voice is, we are not able to hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Very low.
Okay, with any luck, all I'd like to do is express our appreciation. We're immensely grateful, Bill, for your setting aside the time. It was an exceptional presentation, and we are looking forward to continuing to work very closely as a VAR in our relationship with you and your colleagues at the Price Center. I have another meeting that I need to jump to, but please, if there's any questions, I'm sure we can get them perhaps by email, and we'll proceed accordingly. So everyone have a great day, and thank you all once again.
Thank you very much, Thomas. Thanks for joining today.
Thank you.
Okay, and yeah, we are quickly moving to the next slide where we are going to talk about this IBP methodology, which is being primarily used by McKinsey for the implementation. So the benefits of this methodology is this methodology has been split into 3 labs, with where lab 1 consists of discovery and assessment, analyze and identify the high-level process. And the third part of the lab one is the strategy and identification of process and documentation. So with these labs, we will be able to manage the entire implementation process in such a way that it comes compressed within these 3 labs, and as well as it can help us in terms of reducing the time, and also enables the shift left concept. With the lab 2, we have the design and development, test train and solution deployment, and lab 3 is all about running and improving the automation that we have implemented. So with this slide, we move into the next one where we are going to showcase some of our pre-built cases or the accelerators that we have. With the partnership that we have established with the Tricentis have helped us to set up an environment with the Taskor and the other Tricentis product in our local, where we were able to come up with some accelerators and the cases, test cases, which can be used as a pre-built cases or the plug-in cases, we can call them. So these cases can be very much helpful when you start off a project, or you are struggling with how to start and where to start and all those things, right? So this will help you to kickstart your projects very quickly. All we need to do is just plug in these cases in your environment, and we have identified some cases and brought here based on our industry knowledge in retail, fashion and CPG. So if you see that most of the cases are more similar, related to retail industry and related to SAP that you can see here. And these cases, we have a package. So all we need to do is just bring it in your environment, and you can just start your process, rather than you waiting and identifying the right solution for your testing. So not just this, we also have our pre-built boards for our SAP process, like invoice processing, sales order processing, and IMDX process, which is helpful for master data management that we spoke. So if you're looking for such solution, you can reach out to us, McKinsey, and also we have a good partnership with Tricentis, and we can help you with setting up with this platform, this environments, and we can do the resales for the products, being the resales partner with the Tricentis. And with that, we also have our cross browser and cross platform testing that we have been doing. We know that most of the customers, especially with e-commerce customers, they have environments with the web application, and also those web applications also placed in the iOS and Android OS. Okay, so it's very important for us to make sure whether all these platforms are running correctly, and they have been assured quality. So that is where we have a cross browser. If you see that a website can be used on can be opened on any browser. It can be a Chrome, or it can be a Firefox, it can be on Safari, on whatnot. Okay, so we need to make sure that the website, especially the e-commerce related website, right, whether they are up and running in this and are able to cope up with these browsers. So that is where the cross browser testing comes in. And with multi-platform, as we mentioned, most of the e-commerce systems and the retail system that we have are also available in the iOS form, or Apple or the Android OS format, as well as in your app storage or app PlayStation, whatever it is, right? So Play Store. So this one, we make sure that our testing is capable, or test cases are capable of running in all the environments, assuring quality for all the environments. And the third comes the mobile. As you mentioned, the mobile can be either you can open through the mobile browser or a mobile app, and we have made some partnership with some of the providers like Source Labs and Browser Stack, where you can we can set up a platform with the emulators and simulators, and we can also generate the reports accordingly, and we can also bring up the real device cloud for the testing for multi-browser or cross-browser platform here. So with that, I move on to the next one, and this is thank you very much. And before we say thank you, we would like to take any questions. If you have any questions, please to reach out to us on rpapractice@mckinsol.com. If you are looking for any help or support that you need for test automation with Tricentis, you can anyway always reach out to us on our RPA hotline. We should be able to help you, and we should make a good partnership with Tricentis, you and McKinsey. So with that, we are ending this session, and we also have a slide. We just want to show that this is one of our customers case study that we have. This is for Spar, and who is our retail customer who has been using our product, and McKinsey is also involved here. So with that, just going through just what want you to have a look, and you have any questions, please let us know. I'm just keeping this slide for 2 to 3 minutes, then we can move on. Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Thanks, Bill, again for joining and taking your time to come and explain each and every aspect of your product of Tricentis, and giving us the insight and enlightening session for the testing landscape and how the Tricentis products can help us here. Bill, are you talking? Are you on mute?
I am still here.
Yep. Okay. Okay. Thanks, Bill. Have a great day. Thanks all.
Thank you, everyone. Okay, we're clear.
Yep. Thanks, Bill.
I think that went well.
Yeah, definitely. And you can, if you want, you can recap this on our LinkedIn page also, if you want to see how this went. So thanks, Bill.
Fantastic. Hope we get a chance to present live together someday soon.
Yep, sure.